Today I'm joined by Cory Furlong, a Liberty trainer, performer, and educator based in Bozeman, Montana. With over 14 years of experience, Cory has built her entire approach around what she calls the Liberty mentality, a mindset rooted in trust, curiosity, and true partnership. She's the founder of RCR Horsemanship, where horses and humans grow together in confidence and connection. Whether she's training a colt, performing a Liberty act, or teaching students, Cory brings patience, precision, and joy to it all. Her performances, sometimes featuring her dogs too, showcase how powerful communication can be without force or fear. At her core, she believes Liberty isn't just a training method. It's a way to build a better relationship across the board with animals and humans alike. Cool. We did it.
I love it. That intro doesn't even sound like me. That's like the crazy part about it. I'm like, well, hearing that back doesn't feel right.
That's amazing.
It's cool.
And you've done even more than what I just said, but Welcome to the podcast, Cory.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm your host, Ann Christian, and I'm so happy to have her on. So how I met Cory initially is, if you guys remember the photos that I still post, I was on her mare June, which you're going to see, or you just saw footage of. Her riding June without a bridle. I don't know if you noticed that, but in some of the clips, she didn't even have a bridle on, which just speaks to her horsemanship and training abilities, and that's hard. People don't realize that.
Yeah, it definitely takes a lot of work and a lot of trust and a lot of relinquishing control of the horse, because I think the bridle makes us feel this, element of control.
Yeah.
And taking that away it's very powerful. But it also takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
So
you have to really trust that animal, and they have to really trust you. But when I took photos, Makenna McGraw is the one that took them of June and I. It was amazing to see, even just my first time riding June, like her disposition, her trust of you. Because you can't see her, but she's right there. She's kind of driving the car. I was just sitting in it. But because you were giving June the cues to rear up. And that was an amazing experience. For someone that's ridden horses my whole life, I've never done that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've had quite a few people get to come to my place and learn with June, and being able to put somebody on a horse and then control it for them. Yeah. It's a really unique experience. It can be a little bit intimidating at first, honestly.
I was so scared, like the rearing up process. I was like, what's this going to be like? And then after her first girl, I was like, oh. Yeah. She's so smooth. She's a pro. Yep. It's not abrupt. It's not like violent. It's like, it's not her trying to get me off. It was like a controlled movement.
Yeah. It's so different than when you are on a horse that's doing it out of like fear or anxiety or something like that, that can feel very scary. It can kind of throw you backwards a little bit different. But when it's taught well, they really carry themselves beautifully. And it's a really cool movement. It's actually, I find it a lot easier to ride than jumping. Yeah. So even small jumps. So I think, I think that the rear is like, it's really fun and it looks cool and it can be very balanced and very beautiful. It doesn't have to be scary.
It was so much fun. And, so tell us about, I'd love to hear just your story about how you got started in this. Yeah, who you've studied under, kind of just your whole story, how you got into this type of training, but also like why you train this way.
Yeah, man, that's a loaded question. So I first started with horses. I gave pony rides when I was about 12 years old. I got my first job giving pony rides and doing petting zoos. And that was kind of my entrance into the horse world. I always loved horses. I wanted to be around them, took any opportunity to ride them that I could. And then I got a job. And then I saved up all my money from that job and bought my first horse, which was really cool.
Was it a mare or a gelding?
It was a gelding.
What was his name?
Buddy.
Oh.
Yeah. Such a classic. Like,
perfect.
Oh, he was really cool. And the trick and Liberty training really started because I didn't have a place to ride him in the winter. I grew up in Minnesota and I didn't have anywhere to go. And I was like, I had trained dogs. I had, done a lot of training different critters just for fun. And
like birds and eventually grizzly bears.
I did. We'll definitely end up getting there. So I had just like this tiny little stall barn that I could train in the winter, and I just started teaching my horse dog tricks. And this was before like YouTube tutorials were a big thing. And if anybody knows who Ben Atkinson is, he's a phenomenal Liberty trainer. He's trained for he did Peaky Blinders, did all the horses in that, and then he did war horse. So he's been doing a lot of like movie stuff in the UK, and he's just phenomenal. I got to meet him last year, which was incredible.
Lord of the Rings? Was he on set for that?
No, I don't believe so. I think he would have been too young at that point.
That was a long time ago.
He's the same age as me. Okay. So he had started a YouTube channel when he was like 16. And I followed his YouTube channel and actually would like talk to him before he was famous. And I don't think he'd even remember me. Like when he met me, like there was no way he knew who I was from that. But
did you meet him later on at one of his clinics?
I met him at the Liberty Festival last year.
Wow.
And he's incredible. I didn't. No, I was just spectating and enjoying and learning from clinicians at that. Hopefully I'll be able to show there at some point.
I believe it.
Yeah.
After seeing you work, I believe it.
Yeah, I'm really hopeful. Biggest thing is being able to find the time to haul down there. And,
that's right. Where is it?
It's in Kentucky.
Okay. Yeah, it's a far haul.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But I learned a lot from him just seeing what he was doing at 16. And I was also 16, but I had just gotten started with horses, and so I, just tried to teach my horse dog tricks basically. And then I'm sure anybody who's into horses will remember that Stacy Westfall, it must have been early 2000s. She won the national reigning freestyle bareback and bridleless.
Wow.
And I remember watching that as a kid, and I'm like, how on earth did she do that? I'm like, that is so cool. And that was like, okay, that's where I want to be. I want to get to that. And then I saw Dan James on Australia's Got Talent. And then I was like, okay, I want to do that. Like the tricks and the liberty and all that stuff. I was like, wow, this is just incredible. And so I just started playing with it. And it wasn't until I moved out here for college that I really got to learn under some of these trainers. So my wonderful friend and mentor, Jerry Cox, he has tons of amazing trainers come out to his place every year. And I did my first clinic out there with Dan James, and that was an incredible experience. I don't know if Dan will ever understand how much I learned from that like couple of days with him. That like skyrocketed my understanding of liberty work. And so that was really cool. I got to learn from him and a lot of other incredible trainers that I've gotten to meet through Jerry. Hannah Catalino is another one. She interned under Mustang Maddie. She's become a friend now. She's wonderful, and she has a very different style of liberty than Dan James does. So that was really, interesting to learn from her and be able to pull different styles together.
Like piece them together to make them.
Yeah. And then learning from Ben Atkinson, just watching his, I follow all of his stuff online, and then I got to see him in person. And one thing that I really took away from him is that I'm a very high energy person.
Sure.
And I feel like to work with horses, you have to be lower energy because we are predators and we're scary.
Right.
And so I have to rein that in quite a bit. And I have felt like I've had to suppress a lot of my personality. And Ben Atkinson is also kind of a goofy, high energy person.
Sure.
And so he gave me a lot of really great advice about how to compartmentalize and be goofy and be that person, but also like how to control it when you're with the horses, and that's very valuable. And
that's so interesting.
Yeah. And so that was, something that was really nice to take away from him.
I've heard that even on the small scale of like not drinking caffeine. My friend Camille said she was working with her horse sorely, and she noticed when she would drink caffeine or not.
Yep.
Like it was very different because your heart rate's higher, and they can sense that.
Yeah.
And I never have thought about that.
Yeah, no, they have a very intuitive sense of our energy and how we're feeling each day, and they're very forgiving.
They are.
And so that's something that's really cool, is that it's okay to come to your horse and be upset and be having a rough day, but being honest with it is really valuable. And I found that for me, I try to not drink too much caffeine. I can't drink a lot of caffeine. I actually don't drink alcohol almost at all anymore.
Love that.
Because I feel like the next day, no matter what, it kind of sets my body off kind of weird.
Of course. You're in a different headspace. It's all foggier.
Yep. So I try to, take care of myself and be really sharp for my horses and, try to control some of that, anxiety that can just come. And I'm sure we'll get into more of that too, but that's a lot of what I think, the liberty mentality helps with, is that we have to be able to get control of our emotions in a healthy way, not shoving them down, but maintaining control of that so that we can develop better partnerships with the horses.
And you're almost setting that example for them of like, because they also have a lot of energy. Like you were talking about when she first got on June today, she was saying, oh, she has like all this anxious energy. And like from my perspective, she looked great.
She looked perfect.
Just chilling. But that's another thing that speaks to your training is you're so intuitive with your horses and your animals. You know where they're at. And that allows you to work with them better. And they trust you more because of it. And
you have to be able to let them in too. They have to have the room to express to you so that, and they have to feel safe with that. Otherwise, you're not going to feel it. They're not going to show it to you. And then you can't get quite as far. And I think that being able to be open to receiving that from them too is huge. It's not just about what I can do for my horse.
I think a lot of people that work with horses as livestock and as tools can learn so much. And I say that very delicately because that's not my job. And I'm not a 4th generation ranching family. But just being around a little bit of that, I think there could be so much to be said. And there are a lot of people in those industries that do know these things. I do understand it.
And I've been lucky enough to go out to my friend's ranch out in Colstrip. And they're incredible people and they have incredible horsemanship. They're very good at it.
You do see that majority of the time.
They're really cool. And they've let me learn how to rope and all this stuff. Like I'm so not a cowboy. I'm very aware of the fact that like I am a horse person, but I'm not necessarily a cowboy. And there is a difference. And so actually working with horses and dogs that have that kind of job and being around that is completely different than what I do. And seeing like how the horses have to know like, hey, you have a job to do, you need to get it done. But they go about it in a way that isn't scaring the horses, that they're really creating that same kind of partnership. It just looks a little bit different because they have more of a work relationship and I have like a more friend relationship with my horses, and I still have to be a leader for them. But it's a little bit different.
It is different. But I think it's cool when they do create that safe space of like, hey, I want you to do your job. And a lot of the times those horses and dogs love to do their job.
Yes, they do.
What they look forward to.
100%. And what's really cool is, I work with positive reinforcement. So I do train with treats, but all of the methods that I use, you don't have to use treats. So if I am teaching a clinic, I don't have to use treats. I can teach it without that. If people don't want to do any hand feeding, I can do it without it. And there are ways to build that motivation without feeling like you're bribing them. And, and positive reinforcement done well isn't a bribe. But it's, I think a lot of people feel that way about it. They don't want to bribe their animals. And there's a million ways that you can do it and build that relationship without feeling like you have to, feed them cookies or make it all perfect all the time. Right.
And I feel like even just giving a nice, with the hair pat is like something the horses that I ride love. Because it like tells them like, okay, I'm doing something right.
Especially around the wither area up on the mane. That's where they will do mutual grooming. And I try to make sure that everything that I do with my horses, I'm speaking their language as much as I'm asking them to speak mine. And one thing that I'm very cautious about is horses don't give each other positive reinforcement very much. But when they do, it's mutual grooming. And so I try to make sure that I'm petting my horses, down the mane, softly, up by the withers. I give scratches up under the neck. They really like that.
That's sweet.
But I avoid like the patting. Right? They don't.
Or the back and forth.
I try to do just, nice stroking, calming.
That's something. There's a man named Vern who I hope one day he comes on. I don't know if he ever will, but he's like an incredible horseman as well. And he's a true cowboy. And he would fly out to train people's horses. That's what he got paid to do for like almost 40 years.
Incredible.
And he had a gal call him after he trained with her for like a month or so on the East Coast. And she's like, you have to come back out. Like, it was a jumping equestrian horse. A hunter jumper. And she's like, my horse is like not agreeing with me. Every time we get done with the course, like I go to reinforce her positively and like she freaks out on me, like tries to buck me off. And he's like, okay, send me a video. And he's like, he got the video and he's like, I know what's wrong. If you want me to still come, like I can come tomorrow. And so she flew him down. His advice to her was stop petting her like this aggressively. Because that's what she hates. And this lady like cussed him out. She was so mad. She's like, I can't believe I paid you to come out here to tell me that. Like, I know my horse better than you. He's like, okay, like before I leave, can you just try that one time for me? She did. She went with the hair once. Perfect. She was like relaxing, almost fell asleep, like breathing through her nose, just like really happy, relaxed. And she's like, I'm so sorry. She was really embarrassed. Like she flew him out there for that. But it's something as simple as that with a horse.
It's incredible being in tune with those kinds of things. How much you can shift with very small things. I mean, if you think about it, a horse can feel a fly land on them and they can move their skin to get that fly off. Imagine what they're feeling. Like you can only imagine what they're feeling from us. And
our body position.
Yeah. Every little
if we
thing
have
that we
little
do.
squeeze in our thigh or not.
Yep.
That's what I'm working on. I grew up with really great horses.
Yeah.
Which was a blessing, right? Because I didn't really get hurt. But as an adult riding green fresh horses, I don't have that background of like I can do anything.
Yep.
So I'm having to relearn as an adult what it looks like to ride a not great horse, not super finished horse, because I could go out to my pasture and hop on my horse bareback after 2 months and they'd be fine.
Oh yeah.
And that's
not every horse.
No, and I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, thank you, Mom and Dad, for giving us great horses, but also like, dang, being spoiled in that way, like kind of affects you like in your riding ability later on.
Yep.
So I'm having to learn as an adult, like what that looks like.
Yeah. Well, I actually have a student and she's a friend as well, but I pushed her to buy her first horse. She had leased some horses and she'd been learning from me. And I pushed her to buy a green horse because I know her and she is, she's really good at most things. Like a lot of things come pretty easy to her. And I was like, I don't want you to have instant gratification. You need to go through the journey of not having instant gratification and just being able to do things.
Huge.
And so I was like, even if it's not your forever horse, I just want you to learn these pieces. I want you to understand what it takes to get here.
And grow together.
And she more recently has come to me and started realizing like, this is a lot, this is hard.
It's so hard.
And I was like, this is the point that I wanted to reach with you before you got this nicer horse.
Yes.
And so my hope for her right now is that she's gonna see this through, and then she'll be able to find something that she can really work with. I think she could have a really cool future in some kind of mounted patrol.
Wow,
and she's going to need.
Would be amazing.
Yeah, she's going into the police force. She just got a new job. she's incredible.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
So I'm hoping that maybe she'll combine her two loves there. And I don't know if this horse would be the one. Yeah. I think she'll need something more dynamic, but it's just really cool to see her going through that and seeing what those base steps are.
Yes.
And being able to build from there. So then when you do encounter a problem too, with that well-trained horse, you know the foundation to go back to. Wow. That's huge.
It is huge. I love that. And I love that you're pushing your friends to do the harder things instead of just buying a really squared away horse and not ever being stretched.
Yeah.
Because it's stretching. And sometimes like I love going to the barn, the ranch, the farm that I ride at. But sometimes I'm like, gosh, like that harder horse is going to take way more work to ride today. But I'm like, you have to get in the right headspace. And you're like, okay, we're learning together.
Yep.
It does require a lot more, like you've said at the beginning, trust mutually. And I think that's why your method is so beautiful to me. And
thank you.
Yeah, I think a lot of us could learn from you. Anyone that rides, anyone that has an animal could learn, or who is around animals could learn from your methods. But
and the thing is, it doesn't happen overnight either. Yeah. And it is a journey no matter what animal you're working with. I think that animals are such a cool tool for your own growth.
That's right.
And I think that that's what I hope people take away from my training is that it's not just about that animal. I think that the way we work with our animals really reflects what's going on in our personal life.
What's the saying? There's not a bad dog, there's a bad owner.
Yeah. Well, and the same thing is with horses. I try to tell people when I hear any of my students say, oh, my horse is doing this, my horse is bad, my horse is,
It's how you're cueing them.
And I'm like, your horse is being a horse.
Yeah.
That's all they're doing. There's very few horses I've ever met that actually seem to be malicious. I don't think that they are malicious by nature. I think that some can be more aggressive by nature, but it's very rare. You don't find too many that are actually out to get you or, they're just trying to do what feels best for them and what gets them to the best result.
Yeah, or safe.
Yeah,
they're trying to get safe. So sometimes it looks violent, but it's just them being fearful.
Yeah, and a lot of times when I work with problem horses, that ends up being a huge thing. As I tell people, like when you start giving them that autonomy, it might get worse before it gets better. Like you have to realize that they're shut down, they're scared, they're just trying to appease you to make sure that they don't get hurt. And when they start working out of that and realizing that they have autonomy, sometimes they don't necessarily use that for good, right? They're still trying to protect themselves, but they realize that they can do something about it. And so there might be this little bit of like a hard period when you're working with a horse that has abuse in their past, where it looks worse than it did when when they were just shut off.
Wow.
And I don't know, I feel like sometimes people can be the same way when you start working through your stuff. It's like, wow, I feel like a mess all of a sudden. And then,
it's because instead of tearing it down, you're bringing it to the surface.
You're healing.
That's right.
That's the healing process. And I try to bring that to the horses and help them heal and create autonomy and then rebuild the trust.
So basically, what I'm also piecing together is your method is a form of equine therapy for both.
Yes, I joke about that all the time, that I'm a horse therapist.
It's not labeled that way.
No.
And it probably shouldn't be because that's a different realm. But I think it is a really big form of equine therapy, even if it's subconsciously with the person, but like you are experiencing a lot, human and horse.
Yep.
I feel like that's just a different method of it.
Yeah, and it's powerful for both. It's incredible. I don't think I've taught a clinic yet where someone didn't cry.
Good.
And the first one that I had somebody cry, the first clinic, I had someone cry, and it was out of frustration.
Yes.
And I was able to go and talk with her and work through it, and she ended up in a beautiful place with her horse. But more recently, a lot of times people are crying because beautiful things are happening. Yeah. And it was really cool. I was teaching a clinic in Wisconsin, and there's this wonderful woman who was a trainer as well that really wanted to do Liberty, and her horse was pretty standoffish. It was really hard to get her horse to connect. And I worked with her over a couple days, and the first time that her horse actually like hooked on and started following her, like she like turned away, and I was like, it's okay. And everybody was like applauding her. And I don't know if there's a dry eye in the room that day. Like it was incredible the way that this horse connected with her. And you could tell that she felt it and the horse felt it. And it was a really beautiful moment. And that's what I've been finding more so in my training now. A lot less frustration and more just these beautiful moments that are very powerful.
Speaking of powerful, beautiful moments, I would love to get into a little bit of your story.
Uh-oh.
Because obviously you can tell we're both talkers. And
yes, I can just go on. Yeah.
We could talk for hours.
Yeah, we definitely did that when we first met too. We just sat, we were like trying to get warm in the car, and we're just like,
it was freezing that day.
It was so cold.
You can't tell because her horse made me look good, but you can't tell. It was so cold.
It was so cold. I think we were
like
both
a January day, right?
Yeah, it was sometime
like
in January. Yeah, I think.
Montana cold is a different type of cold. For those that don't know.
Yes,
for those that are listening in
bitter
like
cold.
Sunny Florida, North Carolina, like you have no idea.
Now the only thing is that I think Minnesota cold is a worse cold. It is a wet cold. It will soak you like down to your bones. I am very pleased to be in Montana these days. Like we get a few like negative 40 degree days, you know, in Montana, but I will take that.
60 in Livingston.
Oh my gosh, crazy.
But you're right. Since it's dry, it doesn't feel quite as bad.
Yeah, but anyway, we're talkers, so we'll keep doing it.
You guys can't tell at all, can you? No, but I'd love to get into your story. And obviously, thank you for watching my podcast. But you've watched it probably because I came to do my photos on your horse. But so you've known the questions I ask are typically like trying to get to the heart and the meat of the things we've been through and like what it's taught us. And I'd love to hear a little bit about your story and maybe a moment in your life that you've walked through that you were like, I'm not getting past this. And
oh man,
what you learned and how you got past it.
You know, that's where it's gonna hit me like deep. You're just be ready.
You're okay. You're all right. This is a crying safe podcast.
Yeah,
just like your clients.
And that's one thing that I tell my students all the time. I'm like, it's okay to cry, and then it comes to me, and I'm just like, Corey, I don't want to do it.
I'm
but
strong.
No, I've gotten better. I've gotten better at actually letting those things out and being vulnerable.
Yeah. Proud of you for that.
But I don't even know where to start. Let's see. I might need a little bit of help. Do you want to start younger?
Sure.
like growing up, or
whatever moment came to your brain first that you were like, oh, that was probably the hardest time in my life that I walked through. Whatever kind of popped in your mind. It doesn't matter what age.
Yeah. Oh gosh, even thinking about it.
You can only share what you feel comfortable to.
Yeah, I think, give me a second.
Take your time.
It definitely, I started working with horses when I was 12. And I learned some very harsh methods to start with. And I never wanted to be that person. But that's kind of where it began, was just some really awful things. And then when I was a senior in high school, my dad was diagnosed with cancer. And that was a very difficult time to watch him go through that. And I think it made me very vulnerable. I didn't really know what to do with myself. I didn't know how to handle it. And I think I started seeking out relationships in the wrong places. And a lot of the people that I was around they weren't good people. They weren't kind people. They weren't encouraging. I had a few really good friends that have stuck with me through the years, but I definitely was seeking things out in the wrong place. And got caught up with some boys at the time that were not good. They just weren't good kids. Yeah. And around that time, I was sexually assaulted. And I didn't realize how much it affected me in the moment. It was really strange because it wasn't particularly violent, but it was very controlling and very terrifying. And it was a person that was well known in my community, and that all of my friends thought very highly of. And then I encountered this other person that I didn't know existed. And it was really scary, and I didn't feel like I had anywhere to go. And so I just kind of kept that in. And and with my family going through what we were going through at the time, I didn't want to add a weight.
You want to burden them with your experience?
No. And I just kind of held it in, and I actually didn't talk to my family for at least a year or two after it happened. And of course, people are going to watch this, and some people in my life don't even know about that moment, but they may have seen a little bit more of the aftermath, where I dealt with a lot of anxiety and PTSD to the point where when I got to college, I could barely get out of the house. I could barely get out of my dorm room. Going to class was like a serious struggle. I ended up abusing substances, mostly alcohol, and that was like the only way I could get to sleep. And it was just a really difficult, dark time for me. And the only reprieve that I had was with my animals. And I actually was able to teach my dog at the time to be my service animal with the advice of my therapist. I told her, after having some very bad experiences with alcohol, I ended up being hospitalized. And I went to my therapist and I said, I don't want any substances in my system whatsoever. I'm like, this scares me. I don't want to be this person. And I said, I need other tactics to figure out how to be more comfortable. I don't want to take any medication. I don't want to do that. It just doesn't sit right for me. So I was able to train my family dog to be a service dog. And that was also a great focus for me to take that love of training into my own help. Like realizing, okay, I need to recognize what are the things that I do when I'm anxious? What are those tells that my dog can interrupt? And I was able to teach her to, you might notice if I fidget with my hands, I'll crack my knuckles a lot. And so I would fidget with my hands and crack my knuckles, and she would nudge my hands and split them up. Wow. And she could also split crowds for me. If I was in a big area, she would walk in front of me and split a crowd so that I felt like I had some space.
Like a cow dog too.
Yeah, she was so
people.
Cool. Yeah. Wow. And she could, block me from different people.
If she could tell that their presence made you stressed.
Yep. She would, she was so smart. She could remember where my car was. And so she could get me out of stressful environments. So I had a handle on her vest that she could guide me, out if I was, panicking for any reason. It was a really cool experience to have, the recognition of what I needed, and then being able to train my own dog to help me with it. And I felt that was healing in of itself. But I made a lot of progress through that. But when I was 21, and I met my husband, my now husband, and he is an incredible man of God. Like, anybody that knows him, like anybody who's listening to this right now and knows my husband, like, will know that he's just like, his faith is so strong, and he's so knowledgeable, and he's just an incredible man. And I had a kind of a weird relationship with God for a long time. When my dad got sick, I was mad, so mad at him. But I still went to church, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go. It feels good. Like, I have good friends at church. But I was so mad, and I didn't understand it. And then when I met my husband, I think he brought a lot of meaning to that. I had been searching for something. I didn't know what it was, but I was searching for something for a long time. And And I think when I met my husband and he started explaining, you know, God and religion in a different way, that was all about relationship. And that resonated with me, that like, it's more about the relationship, and it's not about, you know, prescribing to these certain set of rules.
That's right.
And that felt very freeing to me. And although I made a lot of progress with my service dog and with the horses and helping with my mental state, I think the biggest shift was when I got baptized. That was a really cool day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cory, thank you. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah.
I know, first and foremost, that wasn't easy.
Yeah.
But secondly, especially for anyone that's watching that's known you your whole life, they have seen your resiliency.
Yeah.
They have seen how you've handled things.
Mm-hmm.
What a blessing God bringing your husband into your life was.
Yes.
And also what a beautiful testimony of something that you do now that you're incredible at, that you're passionate at, being born out of a really dark time.
Yeah. And I think for when I first started with horses and went with my dog, I think I always kind of struggled to figure out how I fit in. You know, I used to say that I was like,
I understand.
that I was kind of the black sheep of my family, but my parents look at that and they're always like, no, you're not. Like, and I'm like, no, I don't mean it in a bad way. It's just that like, I was just different.
Yeah, you didn't
right?
have the
Like,
same path and career and hobby as them.
Exactly.
It wasn't that you were cast out and you weren't loved.
Exactly.
It was like your path looked different.
It looked really different, and it was, and even just my relationship with other kids in school and teachers. I had a lot of really rough teachers that really loved my sister, and then looked at me and they're like,
"Are y'all related?
Like, are you sure that you guys are related at all?" Because my sister is, she's crazy intelligent and she's very studious. She's a very type A personality, and she's very productive.
I understand that.
And and I'm like the polar opposite. And
you're the creative, you're the animal lover.
I'm like the artistic type.
You'd rather be out of school working with your dog and horses than like be stuck in a classroom all day.
Yeah, and I struggled to sit still. I also was that kid that kind of like, I didn't want to give teachers my respect just because they were my teacher. I always felt like, well, you have to earn that. Yeah. And that's probably not the right way to think about things. I should probably
just hate to be here.
Yeah, I'm like, it's so bad. But I challenged my teachers a lot, and I think that was very frustrating.
I bet some of them appreciated it.
I think some of them did, and I think that I had a few really good teachers that really tried to boost that a little bit and teach me how to
challenge.
Yeah, and teach me how to take that and utilize it in a positive way. And then I had some that I just really made angry and
didn't get along with.
And so I think that having my horse when I was 15 kind of helped me through those school years, and then bringing my dog into that. Mm-hmm. And I think about the times with my horse. My grandpa has the greatest saying, and this is where RCR comes from, is from my grandpa. My grandpa has this great saying of everyone needs a piggy, because when he was young, he was getting into trouble and he was hanging out with the wrong crew, and he grew up with a family of pig farmers. And they got him a show pig, and they were like, you have to actually like train it and work with it and do all the stuff. And that became his passion that kept him out of trouble. Wow. And so I say that all the time, that everybody needs a piggy. And for me, it's been training animals, and mostly horses, but of course my dog as well. And I think that it's kind of kept me out of trouble and, helped me figure out myself and find that journey.
You found your piggy. Yeah. What does RCR stand for?
Russell Corner Ranch.
Okay.
So my grandpa, so that's my maiden name, is Russell. And my grandpa grew up in Wisconsin, and he would tell me stories about how he would go to Russell Corner Creamery because his family was very prominent in this small town. And so there were things that were named after the family. And so he talked about Russell Corner Creamery, and that just like stuck in my brain. So when I went to name my company, and eventually when I have my own place,
that's right.
It'll be the ranch. When I went to name that, I wanted to keep my maiden name somehow involved, and kind of give that nod to Grandpa, because I don't think that I'd be into horses in the same way. And I definitely wouldn't be in Montana if it weren't for him, because I grew up coming out to his place here.
Where was his place?
So he lives in Minnesota, but he has a place here just like in between Bozeman and
You
Livingston.
were saying that earlier.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
That's
I grew
cool.
up, I think he got that place in around 98. So I've been going there my whole life.
That's so fun.
You know, I was about 3 years old when he bought it.
I love
and
it.
I just fell in love with Montana. So when I was leaving for college, I was, you know, I applied to one school. My parents will say that I applied to two, but they applied to the other one for me because they were like, you need to have options. And I'm like, I don't want options. I'm either going to MSU or I'm moving to Montana and I'm going to get a job. And,
That's right.
I was like, I was so like dead set. I'm coming to Montana. And my mom didn't get into the other college. My mom had to write the essay and everything. She didn't get into that one. But then
God was really clear with where he wanted you.
Yeah, I think so.
And you knew where you wanted to be, so.
Yep, I was pretty set.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'd love to touch on your relationship with your husband as well, and your family, and what that's taught you as well. But also so cool about being baptized. I love that. There's something special when you are an adult and it is a decision, and it is a decision for a relationship that you make after you've been through hard times.
Yep.
And I understand and grieve with you with the struggle of blaming God for the things that have happened, because there is the truth of, yes, God can control and change anything, but there's also the truth that we live in a broken, fallen world where we have the free choice to make those decisions.
Well, and when you have good relationships, whether it's with people or for me with animals, you realize that the best, most loving relationship doesn't come from force. It doesn't come from control.
That's exactly right.
And that's what I think is so cool about this liberty stuff, is that I think you can learn that and it can go into your other relationships.
So good.
But those are the best relationships, are the ones that you aren't in control of, but it's based off of the desire and the love. And that's all God is doing for us, that he loves us. So he gives us that choice. He gives us that freedom.
Yeah, God is too kind to force us to love him back.
Exactly.
Because forced love is not love at all.
No.
And he's not a puppeteer in the sky pulling on his strings to make us do things.
Yeah.
Because that wouldn't be love.
No.
And that's what I think is so beautiful about Jesus, is that he chose to stand on the cross when he could have called down legions of angels to kill everyone there.
Yeah.
On spot.
Yep.
He could have said the word and God would have literally flattened the earth. And instead, he chose to be on a cross. He chose to be mocked. He chose to be spit on and die the most gruesome death for us in our place. Yeah. And when people realize that he's not a God that's trying to control you, like you said. Yeah. He's not a God that wants you to check off every mark of following all these rules. He just wants your heart.
Yeah. And he gives us he gives us the tools to live a good life and to live a peaceful life and productive and bring more people to him. And I think he gives us those tools, but he doesn't force us to follow it.
That's right.
And I think everybody's relationship with God looks a little different. And I think that the way that we interpret what we want to follow and how we follow those ideas that we see laid out in the Bible, I think the way that everybody interprets is a little bit different, but the core relationship is what's important, and that's what's there.
That's right.
And however you go about it, it's your journey. It's different. I don't have the same relationship with my mom and my dad. My mom doesn't have the same relationship with me and my sister, but there's love, right? And so God doesn't have the same relationship with each of us, but it's all loving.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And we all have different stories and, like we said earlier, different paths. And that's what I think is so cool, is like he made us all so unique. And just like, working with animals, you could have two in the same litter. I have a mom and a son dog. Yeah. And they are vastly different dogs. Yep. And the same thing is like all of his kids were all so different. And he's created us one of a kind. Yeah. And we're all his favorite. So I'm like, I'm God's favorite. You're like, I'm God's favorite. We're all his favorite kids.
And when you become a parent too, I think that you understand God's love so different, because I think you kind of think it's like, how could you not have a favorite kid? Even look at your relationship with your parents. Maybe you might feel like there's a favorite kid.
Oh, yeah.
But then becoming a parent, I'm like, I don't have a favorite kid. I love my children.
You love them differently.
And I love them differently. And my kids are so incredibly different. And very similar to how me and my sister were. So incredibly different. But it's beautiful. And it's really cool. And we get to, I get to learn things from my sister now. And my son and my daughter get to learn from each other and how they're different. And I love them both.
How old are they?
They're 5 and 2. So my son is 5, my daughter's 2.
You do not have a 2-year-old. You look too good for that girl.
I have a 2-year-old, yep.
Dang.
Thank you. Keep it coming.
Your goals.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
One day I'm going to be like, Dang, Cory.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And I think it's really important, especially if you're listening and you're single like I am, to wait for a man. If you are walking with God and you do have faith, to wait for a man of God.
Yes.
Because I've been on the other end of not.
Yeah.
Or honestly being deceived by someone I thought was a man of God.
Yes, absolutely.
And then finding out later on that they weren't that at all.
Yeah.
And I think like you in that season of life, I was so terribly mad at God. I'm like, how did you let me do this? How did you let me make this big decision with someone that wasn't? But then the truth is I made it.
Yep.
God loves me enough to give me the free choice.
Yeah.
I went against a ton of red flags.
Yep.
It's a very complex situation, but at the end of the day, it was still my choice. And he loves me too much. I mean, I should have known one of the days I was making a very big decision with this person. A deer ran into my car. I'm like, I should have been listening. Yeah. The Lord's like, stop.
Yeah. Well, and what's so funny is like, those kinds of signs to me, like, I feel like sometimes they just spiral and you just feel like this day is like awful. Yeah. And I'm like, that's a sign.
Then we blame the enemy. We're like, the enemy's just after me today. But like, no, maybe it's God trying to throw up some signs.
Yeah. And I don't believe that God necessarily makes bad things happen.
No.
But I do think that there are things that kind of make the universe tilt a little bit off, and
he's just trying to show us.
He's trying to just where it's like maybe this is a day to lay in bed. I don't know.
Maybe you just wake up.
Like this is not it.
I know.
And for me, the big sign that I'm doing something right has always been seeing an eagle flying.
Beautiful.
It's been like this constant thing through my life. That I played hockey growing up. I still play hockey. It's
she's
amazing.
Cool too.
I'm a goalie.
You are so cool. How do you still have your teeth?
Because face mask.
Okay, yeah.
I'm a goalie, so I'm not. And women's hockey is a little different.
Okay, sure. I see that.
Yeah, but one of my first hockey teams when I was I think I was 5 years old. My dad was my coach, and we were the Eagles, and and I just like had this love of Eagles from that point on.
What number were you?
In high school, I was 44.
Okay,
4 is my lucky number. 44 has been.
14's mine.
So there you go. 4, it's good.
Just wanted to see.
But yeah, I started, with hockey and playing hockey with my dad, and then me and my dad, when we would go to hockey, we would play songs from the Eagles. We'd play an Eagles CD.
Oh, that's cute.
And my father-daughter dance was "Take It to the Limit" by the Eagles. And so it's been this thing in my life that the Eagles are just this like sign of something good. And so a lot of times when I'm making a big decision in life, I'll be driving somewhere and it's just kind of sitting in my head and I'm making this big decision and I see an eagle flying overhead and I'm just like, okay, peace.
All right, Lord,
like,
you got me.
I'm like, okay, you got me. That's what it is.
I'm in the right space right now. I'm going in the right direction.
Yeah, that's been a big thing. And I got to see the Eagles at the Sphere.
My dad did too.
Yeah.
Did you, like last year?
So it was this year, wasn't it? And it was
for NFR.
No, they were there.
Same week NFR.
Oh, maybe they were there during the NFR,
they were here last year too.
Yeah, but they did like their long stint at the Sphere in Vegas, and
residency or whatever it's called.
Yeah, and my dad took me there for my 30th birthday, so. We got to see
cool.
like that was our band forever, and we got to see the Eagles. So yeah, that's always been my sign.
Did you bring back a cup?
I brought back a few things.
My dad brought back a cup.
Yeah.
And he'll talk to anyone that will listen about that.
Yeah.
He's like, it was the coolest thing you'll ever see.
You know what? I'm going to tell everybody, if you have a chance to go to a concert in the Sphere, do it. Like, oh my gosh.
Worth anything. Yeah.
And the Eagles of all bands, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
My dad loved it too. I should have gone with him.
It was so cool. I highly recommend going to the Sphere.
We did George Strait and Chris Stapleton the next night.
Oh, nice.
And it was during NFR, so like my friends and I had something else going on the night.
Yeah.
But he went by himself and he said it was the coolest.
Yeah. You can't compare to all those speakers.
That's what he was saying.
The sound in there is incredible, and it doesn't it's not ear piercing. It's so cool.
I need to do that.
Little tangent, but oh my gosh, highly recommend.
I'm like, Spirit needs to sponsor this podcast.
Yeah, seriously, sponsor us.
We're giving him a big plug.
Yeah.
I do think we've talked for a good bit of time, but the last question I want to ask you is what I always end on, so you're probably familiar. But it is, if you could go back in time at any given age and look yourself in the eye and tell yourself one piece of advice, what age would you be and what would you tell yourself?
Oh, good question. I mean, I feel like there's a few different times that I could have heard something from adult me. I think when I was going through some of those darker times, around, 18, 19, I could have just had somebody say it's going to be okay. That's it. That's all I really needed to hear. And I'd say to 12-year-old me, we made it.
That's right.
We made it.
That's right.
We did it. Like, I think I look back at 12-year-old me. That's the only person I want to impress, by the way.
Wow.
Is I think about that all the time, is like, you can kill yourself with comparison. And the only person I care to impress is 12-year-old me that had just started working with horses and wanted to be a trainer. But I was like, that's this far-fetched idea. So I was thinking, I'm going to be a vet. I'm going to do all these things. And I've worked at vet clinics. I've done lots of really cool things. Like we said, I got to work with grizzly bears. And
what was your major in college, by the way?
Fish and wildlife management.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know we were on the last question, but I do also want to hear about, because I think it's worth mentioning, the grizzly bear thing. Yeah. So if after you answer this, you want to get into that.
Yeah, sure.
And say anything else as well that you want to share.
But yeah, I think right now I'm like, I just want to impress the 12-year-old version of me that was like, okay, maybe we'll become a veterinarian. Maybe I'll, do all these different things. But I just loved horses, like, more than anything, and animals in general, but particularly horses. And I think if 12-year-old me could look at me now, she'd be like, there's no freaking way.
You did it, girl.
But we made it. We made it. And it still is a journey. I think every moment with my career, it shifts and it's changing and
you did just
evolving.
do a cool commercial, which you can't talk about in detail, but
yeah. So
cool.
I've done a lot of cool filming. A few years back, I got to film a movie with my old horse. Shout out to Finding Love in Big Sky. Check it out.
Is it like a Netflix movie?
It's more like a Hallmarky thing. You'll see it on Up Faith and Family. Like that's.
I have to watch this now.
It is the cutest, cheesiest movie ever. But check out, look out for the roan horse in there. That's my guy.
Were you on him?
No, I didn't fit the build for stunt doubling.
So like a different hair color gal.
Yeah, so I had a couple friends were doing stunt double stuff, and another friend had her horses also in it. And then I also helped with the dog work in that because the dog we were using wouldn't leave the side of its owner, but I had done some training with it, so I was able to do the training, but the dog would actually leave me and be in the film. So the owner had to go hide in a horse trailer to make that
Somewhere
work.
Else?
Yeah, she had to be far, far away to get the dog to work. But
that's so
cool.
Cool.
So I got to do that. And then more recently, I got to film with this really awesome crew. It was really just a real estate style footage, but very elaborate. Wow. And I think it's going to turn out really beautiful.
I cannot wait to see that.
Yeah.
When they share
I think that's going to be really cool. And yeah, I've kind of dove in a little bit more to the film and photography world. And that's really exciting for me.
Mine.
Yeah. Yep.
You're really good on set too, or at least our little tiny set we did with Makenna. Like you were so great about like knowing how to handle everything step by step, making me feel comfortable, but also like you got out of the way at the perfect moment and like you angled us perfectly and like you knew what you were doing. Yeah.
So I actually grew up doing some acting. And so I think that helps, understanding like how to get to a mark and that kind of stuff. And then being on movie sets and that kind of stuff. That's, makes a big difference.
The production side too.
Yeah. The movie that I was on, they were really appreciative of the fact that I had done some acting. Wow. So I was able to read the script and understand the blocking and all that stuff. I'm like, I actually knew that. So I just had to get the horse to the right spot.
We need to get you on Heartland. Do they still film for that?
I think they are. I think, Dan James has been the trainer on it for the last few seasons.
We need to figure out a way to, you need to be on there.
Yeah, I'm hoping that at the Liberty Festival this year, I might actually get to meet Amber Marshall. I got to watch her there, but I didn't get to meet her last time, so I'm hopeful.
Yeah, I feel like you would fit into that world perfectly.
Yeah.
From your look to your background to your training to your horses, I'm like, they need you.
I've always wanted to do that. I think every time I've gotten off of like a set for filming or for modeling, I'm like, I think there's just like this little like 12-year-old Cory that comes up and I'm just like, oh my God, I did that. I just did that.
And you did it well.
Yeah.
You did it really well.
Yeah. And
because you're gorgeous. It's not just like you're good with horses, you're also beautiful. So
thank you.
Okay, quickly before
Yes.
we end, I do want to hear about the grizzly bear stuff.
Yeah.
If you guys know, I've talked about I want to go to the grizzly bear encounter.
Yes.
I want to like do like a little segment on them because they
Yeah.
seem really cool, but you've actually worked with them.
Yeah, so I got an internship there when I was in college, and they are incredible. First of all, I think that a lot of people think, I think we talked about this earlier, that a lot of people think that anybody who has bears or any of these crazy critters, that it's going to be like Tiger King.
Yeah.
It is not. Not everybody's like that. I think you do have to be like a certain kind of crazy to want to work around animals like that. But it is not like Tiger King. But my job there, for the most part, was doing educational talks about bear safety and things like that. And then I got to do some, I took care of the bears. I did their care, feeding, cleaning, that kind of stuff. And then on occasion, I did get to help with some of their film photography stuff that they were doing. And I, just being a part of it, I got to learn a lot about like how to do a lot of positive reinforcement, because when you're working with wild animals like that, it needs to be their choice and you need to learn their tells that they're done. And you don't push them. If the bear doesn't want to work, the bear doesn't work. If the bear wants to work, then the bear works. And so it's all voluntary. And it's amazing what they'll do and how intelligent they are. And what they'll do for people. But they're still a wild animal. You still have to take precautions and realize that you're not going to control that. You're not going to tell them what to do. And so that was a really unique experience. And I'm still friends with a lot of people over there. I highly recommend going over there.
I will. Maybe
It's really cool.
Me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe we'll get you there too.
Yeah, I'm hoping that I might be able to do some training with them. I've talked a lot with the owner about working with some of the bears there, and
That'd be so cool.
particularly exploring how to do voluntary vet care, because the vet care has always been, I wouldn't say like,
sleep.
yeah, it's not, I wouldn't say it's like particularly traumatic, but we kind of would like lure the bears with their favorite food and then have to sedate them. And after that, the bears really avoid their favorite food for a while, because
they're conditioned to know what that means.
And I mean, think about like, when you go under for surgeries, everybody responds to it a little bit different, but it can be kind of scary coming out of it. And if you didn't know what was going on or why, you might
get violent.
You might get a little scared. Like it might be intimidating. So that's one thing that I've worked a lot with horses and with dogs is, voluntary vet care. So we've talked a little bit about trying to bring that to the bears. I have a good friend that also helped help make that program over at the zoo in Billings. And try to get a lot of those animals.
Fun to go over there too.
Yeah, but she did a lot of work teaching voluntary vet work to a lot of the zoo animals to try to reduce stress, and I've worked a lot with my vet. Shout out to Stacy Boswell if anybody's in the area.
Shout out
Stacy, you're amazing. But she is very good at working with fear-free vet work, because a lot of times you bring your dog to the vet and they're shaking and they're scared. So she tries to promote better methods.
I wish my sister was here. They need her with their pit mix.
Yeah. So my dog even like taking medications, a lot of times you have to shove it down their throat. And
I slathered it with peanut butter.
Yeah, and my old dog wouldn't eat something that had a pill in it.
Really
yeah,
smart.
she would spit it out, and some dogs will do that. And so, there's some dogs that just aren't that food motivated to take something. And I taught my dog to pick up the pill from the ground, put it in his mouth, and then take a treat and swallow it. What? And it's amazing what you can do. It is amazing. And my horses also will take oral medications voluntarily, so I can just put the syringe out and they'll put their mouth around it and do that.
You reinforce positively after.
Yeah, and I think that even if it's unpleasant in the moment, when the horse or the dog or whatever creature you're working with understands what the ask is and why, then they're more willing to do it, even if it's unpleasant in the moment. So I've seen with zoo animals, they'll teach them to kind of, grab onto something so that they can do vaccines or draw blood. And of course, it's not pleasant, but the animal knows like, okay, I'm going to put this here. I'm going to, get some food, and I'm going to feel a little poke, and it'll be for a couple minutes, and it's okay.
And it's not this crazy waking up after really upset.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be this big scary thing. Even just doing vaccines. So, and my horses have now learned, to do more voluntary vaccines. I actually gentled a 14-year-old unhandled stud. And nobody had really been able to get their hands on him in 14 years, apparently. And I used a lot of positive reinforcement, and we were able to get him gelded, and it was all really safe. And we've got a lot of cool videos with my vet that we were able to do voluntary oral medication to help start sedate him. And then we did some voluntary vaccines, and then she was able to come in after I got those done for her. So
you're amazing.
It's amazing what you can get them to do with just some understanding and trust.
I'm going to talk to Doug about you working with Hero.
Yeah.
Who we talked about earlier.
Yes.
But gosh, well, thank you for sharing pieces of your story, your heart.
Absolutely.
I loved hearing more about you, and I know people are going to resonate with this. And if nothing else, get to hear really cool stories about what you do. But I think more than not, they're going to really resonate with what you shared about your life experience. And thank you for being vulnerable enough to share.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And
finally.
I feel like we could talk for, forever. Like there's so much more we could dive into.
We need like a part 2 and 3 later.
Yeah. Maybe we will.
I'm sure we'll get there.
Yeah.
Especially because I would love to stick around here as long as God has me here. But,
yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun to see what you're doing and to now be a part of it. This is really cool.
You're amazing. Thank you for supporting and being here today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Until next time.
Yeah.